So here we are again. In the previous video you saw how I did the outline in real time on this little ducky right here, and today we're gonna color it in. Of course this is all done in the same session, but I thought I would separate them a little bit so I can explain a little bit more about how I actually go about packing my tattoos. Right now there's nothing too much going on. There's gonna be a lot of colors overlapping each other, so I'm just gonna set up kind of like my first basis of where I want my color to start, since there's going to be a certain highlight underneath in a different color. So I'm just mapping everything out with my blues right here and making sure I'm not packing it in too solid, because I have to go over the same color again with another color to kind of blend that out. So I'm using my WOS E60 with a 5mm stroke, because I can use it very slow and I wouldn't be packing too dense into the skin. So I'm using that, and I'm using around the 4.5 to maximum 5 folds to get that color into the skin. Also, I'm using a fairly small magnum. I'm using a 9 magnum here by Elite. It's one of the Infinity cartridges that I reviewed on my channel as well. I will link that in the description down below. So as you can see, I am working off the edge that I just created of solid color, or pretty much solid color, and I'm just gonna be whip shading off that to kind of start that transition kind of from my dark blues, because we are gonna blend it into a more of a yellow, and in that blend it will be somewhat greenish, which is gonna be a very cool effect, since this duck is gonna be kind of like a zombie kind of ducky swimming in a pool of blood, which is pretty dark. But my clients like these kind of tattoos, so that's why we went with it. So you can see I'm just trying to blend and really make sure I don't saturate the skin or damage the skin too much, and just trying to get some of those colors in. So right here I started to blend it with a color that's kind of in between the purple and light blue kind of range. This is because underneath is gonna be more of like a purple red-ish color, so I want to keep a nice blend from a darker blue into a more lighter purple blue to go to yellow from there on. Now, to make that blend even better from the dark blue to yellow, I did decided to put a little bit of green into some places where I don't want it to be really like blending into the blue directly, but it needs to have a little bit more extra shade, because if you pack the whole thing yellow from a blue kind of shade, there's not going to be enough contrast, and I rather add in a bit more darker colors to have a nicer transition and to bring that contrast a little bit more, just to bring a little bit more contrast into a piece like this. Even though it's a simple cartoony kind of piece, it just needs to stand out, and just yellow is just not gonna cut it for this design. can see, I am blending the green into the blue and purple and a little bit behind the wing there to create kind of a shadow kind of effect. As you can see, I'm using a fairly fast hand speed with a slow running machine, just so I make sure I blend these colors and not pack them in there solid. Because that's something you definitely don't want to do, is pack everything in solid right away. I'd rather do a couple of passes and make sure that blend gets in there really smooth. And now that we have had pretty much all the greens and blues and all the shades in the spots where I want to get it, I'm going to start with my red to get that red kind of glow on the duck, because it is sitting in like a red kind of pool, which I am going to be shading a little bit later, but I do want to have kind of like that reflection on the bottom of the duck. Could of course think like, oh, why don't you do the yellow first? Now red is a little bit more of a dominant color, and I don't want to put in the red once the yellow is there and actually smudge that red into my yellows. It's just something that is what I've learned over my course of learning to tattoo, is always work from your darkest color towards your lightest color, and don't go back and forth too much. I do know that a lot of people that do color realism work in sections and they blend their colors right there, and they even do their whites and then go back to a lot of a darker color. It's probably possible, it's just something that I haven't really learned to do, so I'm not using that kind of technique for my kind of tattoos. As you can see, I'm just chipping away on the red. It's nothing much I have to do there other than just packing it in solid. Now what I do always prefer to do whenever I have to pack very solid is make sure my needle is not sticking out too far, so I don't have to worry about the depth. I don't have to worry about getting a good ink flow, and just pack that color in there. Make sure you have a good look at your needle so you know where your needle is, because sometimes you will create kind of a puddle onto the skin, but that actually helps for me to get a lot of pigment into the skin. Now I do also want to add a little bit of red right here in the head, and just slowly kind of blend that into my greens. Not too harsh, but just a little bit, and kind of fade that out, so we create a little bit more dimensions into the tattoo. Since it's a very flat and cartoony thing, just try to create something extra into a design like this. We now came to the part where we were gonna do the yellow, and as you can see, I am grabbing a different needle. This is because it is a larger surface that I have to cover, and since I've already touched so many spots on that skin, I don't want to use too small of a needle and damage that skin more than I'm supposed to. So what I'm using right now is a 13 Magnum from Peach. Also a needle that I had on the channel and I really like for these kind of works. They have a good ink flow and they're working pretty good, and so I'm just starting to blend and pack in all the skin that hasn't really been packed yet. My hand is blocking the view a little bit, so I had to cut out a couple of sections of the tattoo because you just couldn't see what I'm doing. But I'm just hitting pretty much every part of the skin that's open and then by speeding up my hand speed, slowly blending it in to the color that's already in the skin there. So now I'm just blending it into a little bit of that red and also into that green, and packing that little bit of skin that's still open there, and make sure I hit every single spot of that skin. Now probably the biggest key into saturating your color is to maintain that slow hand speed. It is sometimes hard to lose your focus and kind of start rushing through the tattoo. That is something you absolutely don't want to do. Make sure you keep a nice and slow hand speed and really saturate that color. Also, don't speed up your machine or anything else to be able to work faster. Just take your time with it and pack in that color, because when you work slow, you're gonna pack your color actually a lot faster than when you try to get it in there fast. Right here I'm putting a little bit of Vaseline on before I wash down the tattoo, and make sure I get a good glimpse to see if my color has saturated everywhere perfectly into the skin. So I usually just put on some Vaseline, massage it in there, and it'll make it a bit easier to get any of that ink residue off. If you like these kind of videos where I kind of do a voiceover over my actual tattoo work, make sure you leave me a like and let me know in the comments as well. If you're not subscribed to my channel yet, make sure you do that so you don't miss out on any future videos. Other than that, I just want to thank you all for watching and wish you all a wonderful day.